without the black manosphere, right? Without the black manosphere, right? We would not have as much context and be able to break this down the same way. All right. Shout out to this very lazy content creator. This nigga not saying shit. He's just going to just sit in the camera. It's wow. Anyway, so this is a direct quote from Marlon Wayans saying, "I never got married because I never wanted my mother to be jealous of a woman. I never wanted my mother to feel second to any woman." That is one of the weirdest reasons to not get married. And listen, I want to talk on this because this is what I mean by a certain mindset and a way of doing things dying. First and foremost, so Marlon Wayans had a long-term relationship with the mother of his child, right? And in recent interviews, he's asked about, why don't you guys get married? So it's not that I don't believe Marlon Wayans when he says that he didn't want his mother to be jealous, right? But part of it is also it's I think that it's not really the healthiest thing for men to be too close to their mother. One of the reasons why I became a man and I became manly was because I started having more relationships with more men. Pause, not in that way, but just having more friendships and more mentorships, or just mentors by default in the way of men. And shout out to my mother for making it possible for me to even be receptive to these kind of things, because from her, encouraging me to go stay with my father, or just, basically, not being combative about me going to go stay with my father. One of the best things that ever happened to me was spending a few years around my dad and us living together. Now we didn't live together for that long, but it felt like a long enough time. It was about 5 years that we lived together consistently. Now at the time, I had a hard time with, how can I say, with structure. Now I wasn't always around my dad, and that's why I can understand the immaturity and when someone's being immature. So, for example, in relationships, we hear this whole narrative of, not even narrative, but the repeated experience or admission of, I fumbled a good guy. But you're hearing more women say that online, or when the conversation comes up, there is such a thing as women will have a good dude, the dude is a good fit, but she will sabotage the relationship, or she'll end the relationship before it can go any further, or she'll just basically things to be going good and she'll sabotage it. Men won't even always pick up on this stuff because you have to be a sabotaging dude to even know what's going on. But anyway, but the point being is, um, without the black YouTube space, right? We want to have a context for this shit, right? And going to this whole thing with the whole son husband thing, I brought it up because with the son husband concept, how can I say? That was something that I never heard of before Kevin Samuels. Now that wasn't his concept. I believe it was Dr. T. Hassan Johnson's concept, right? But we wouldn't really have as much context to really understand what the hell we're looking at, right? So this is some son husband ish to the highest order, but also until I'm saying again about the relationship. Now, obviously, they must have a very close relationship. Now, most people, when they get older, they grow further apart from their mothers, right? So their mother's opinions can only matter that much if y'all have a real close, as in y'all talk all the time, or y'all live together, or she's reliant on you, right? But anyway, we're going back to the whole men being married. So if you guys don't understand what son husband, so the son husband archetype in the black community, which for the most part, most black men either have the son husband mindset, or they're forced into a son husband type of responsibility, where, because for the most part, most women don't have the rest of their life planned out. But my grandmother's one of like very few women in my personal life where the money that she has coming in from her pension and social security is enough to take care of her, and she never needs people. Most women, if you don't have a pension and social security, you are going to need people for the rest of your life, which is not really a negative thing because we've always done it like this. We've always had family take care of family. You take care of your kids when they're young, and then when you get older, they're supposed to like kind of come back around, right? And you're supposed to kind of switch places, not so much to where they're your full caretaker, but you're supposed to look out for your parents. And I think about that for myself, like, I gotta get my ish together so that I can take care of my parents. My mother and father can't work forever. You know what I'm saying? And like, what am I going to do to make sure that they're comfortable and that they are right? Or at least be able to contribute towards their expenses and things they need. So that's one of my dreams. But anywho, in terms of how it was talked about online, in terms of the son husband thing, the issue was it's many issues, but one part of it is this is the product of the women not prioritizing the relationship they had with, let's say, the kid's father, and understanding how important it is, and that most women, even if you look good, you're not going to get that many actual good boyfriends, all right, or men you want, or especially if you're attractive, because I mean, for the most part, I've heard CJ say this about how men and women don't really mix, meaning that men and women, for the most part. Now, me personally, I try to be as positive as possible. I don't think it has to be that way, but men and women don't really get along. And a part of how the son husband thing comes about is because she doesn't have a man to take care of her. She doesn't have a man to help her plan life. She doesn't have a man to share the resources with. So naturally, over time, yo, as she gets older and she can't work anymore, yo, the responsibilities will fall on you, or she will maybe have to come stay with you at some point. But it's the thing that is how can I say, a looming, not a looming threat, but it's a definite in the future, especially if you know that your mother doesn't have a 401k, a retirement fund, any of that shit. You know what I mean? So I know me, I better work on it. But the reason why I also wanted to comment on what he said about why you didn't get married. I think in a lot of different ways, the closer you are with your mother, you're gonna take on certain behaviors, and you may not realize that, yo, you are passive. You're very passive, and you're not able to hurt feelings, and you don't really tell the truth. Because that's you gotta realize, by default, women don't really tell the truth unless they be around men, because that is a learned behavior. If left to their own devices, women may not realize it, but you don't tell the truth. You're not really honest. For example, that fat friend you got. Well, in fact, this other day, right? I saw a coworker of mine. She never gets her hair done. She's not the most attractive lady, and she had got this piece put in, right? And rather than just say, "Oh, okay, you look nice today," women will have. It don't matter how ugly she is, how unattractive the woman is, right? If she look nice at all, they will say, "Oh my God, look at you, yes, bitch, yes, oh my God." They start throwing dollars and shit, you know what I mean? They may call 911 talking about you on fire. You understand? But women will do way too much for a woman and they can be something. I don't mean you can't compliment someone or tell them, "Oh, you look great," or "You look nice today," or that's nice hairstyle. No, they listen. They will go above and beyond and really be gassing him up. And it's a double-edged sword, because it all depends on what you want to do with that information. I'm just saying. But but in general, you got to realize that the truth is mentally too much for women. Like, even when it comes to having a conversation, even when it comes to being direct, like, for the most part, even ghosting in general, which is one of the most passive things you can ever do. Don't get me wrong. If it's someone you just spoke to on a dating app, and you guys just, maybe text a few times on a dating app, it's not a big deal if you don't talk to them no more. But if you guys have like a relationship, you understand, and y'all was like together or something like that, that is hella weird. But anyway, but in general, people don't really deal with things directly. I feel like in society, 'cause I think a part of it is that, yo, we've all tried to take on this feminist mindset of everyone counts, everyone's feelings counts. Punish people when they're ignorant to, I guess, the struggles of other people. Even also the whole leftist ideology of, all right, well, if you disagree with me, then anything goes. I wish death on you. I hope that nothing good goes on for you in life. I.e. the whole thing with Charlie Kirk. But anywho, so I wanted to get into the whole son husband thing, and just why. Well, and I've seen in my own personal life, one of the worst things that can happen to a man is again, like, yo, you have to separate from your mother. You can't be a man all while being super close with your mom. And I'm not saying that you're a bitch or you're a pussy. I'm just saying it's like you're not going to be able to make decisions on your own, and also you're going to be influenced by her and because how she thinks. Like, yo, like, I'm able to speak with my mother in a way where we have a respectful conversation, but I also understand that I've outgrown her leadership and her, how can I say that? I've outgrown her leadership. So I understand that it's only certain things that she can advise me in or even have a conversation with me in, because I'm at the age I'm at. I'm 38. I'm able to have way more advanced conversations because my leadership and my experience now outweighs her own. You know what I'm saying? In terms of like leadership and professional experience and success and whatnot. So, and even with relationships, I mean, I know that I've come to accept, which I never was looking for that, but I had to accept, yo, I'm not going to get no like advice from my mother or support from my mother because she has her own struggles with understanding relationships, right? And that's another thing that men have to understand. Like, yo, you had to outgrow your mother, because if not, you'll never really become that nigga. And you also have to do it away from her. Meaning that you guys are not under the same roof. Because no matter what, as long as you're under the same roof as your mother, your grandmother, you're never truly the man in your own space. And you're never going to truly think like a man or even feel like a man. And I think a lot of like feminist society, like American society, is about making men feel like they're not men. You know, which brings us to our next clip here. Let's see how we doing. All right. So this is the clip right here. All right. Hold on. This is the clip right here. It's kind of I mean, okay. So this is a press interview with Marlon Wayans and his co-stars from the movie Him. And honestly, Julia Fox sounds a little drunk. Honestly, the ways that she jumps in there, and I have a few different theories on why this interaction went how it went. But a lot of people wanted to talk